Welcome back. I'm Dennis Bacon.
And I'm John Kliewer, and welcome to the Beyond the Journey podcast, episode 2. I know we've got some fun things to talk about today, so you want to tee that up?
Sure. In our podcast, one of the things we think is important is that you understand who we are and why we do what we do.
Absolutely.
And to that regard, what we'd like to do today is talk a little bit about what our values are.
Yeah.
Why do we do what we do?
Yeah. Wow. That's a big topic for episode 2 to really jump right into. And, you know, I think at our core, if we think about really kind of narrowing down what those values are, I know something that really brought us together was this idea of really doing what's best for the client. And I think a lot of times that gets summed up in words like integrity and trust and communication. And I know our goal today is to kind of maybe unpack that a little bit. But at the end of the day, we really do care about our clients in a way that hopefully sets us apart. And so, you know, when we think about doing what's best for the client and having integrity and all of that, just what are some things that come to mind over your time as an advisor?
Well, when I think about doing what's best for the clients, I think I need to really understand who they are. And to me, and as we develop that relationship, that understanding, and then pairing that with my knowledge, and with your knowledge, and with all the other advisors that are on the team, their knowledge, it's an understanding that this is really their life,
right?
It's their plan is
That's
what
right.
they're doing, and if we're always trying, you know, if you're trying to always do what is your plan, what you have lined up, what products you have available, what you see the world, what lens you see the world through, it doesn't become their plan.
Right.
And I think that's part of what integrity is understanding that it's their money, it's their life, it's their plan. And our goal is to understand that better so we can then thoroughly give them the plan that works best for them, introduce them to new concepts, new ways of looking at things that will pair with what their life is all about.
Right. Yeah, that's so good. You know, I often think about, you know, we all have our own beliefs, and our behaviors often follow our beliefs, and the way we do something and the way we think about something really impacts how we're going to interact with the people that we call our clients and our friends and those relationships that we're building. And so I know for me personally, it really starts with this idea of you know, that personal integrity, doing what's right and doing what, you know, is best for those that we're serving, even when they don't know that what we're doing is best for them. You know, I think about the fact that in the industry that we're in, people come to us all the time and they simply don't know what they don't know, right? There's things, they come and they ask questions, they have goals, they have a dream, but at the end of the day, they really do rely on us to direct them and give them a path. And I think oftentimes people are uneasy about what that conversation may actually be like, because honestly, an advisor could tell them just about whatever they wanted. And so to me, that personal integrity really comes from having that knowledge and having talked with people over the years to say, hey, you know, this is really important for us to understand. What do you believe? What are your beliefs? And how does that impact the decisions we're going to make today? So maybe let's dig in a little deeper and start defining what some of these key words are, like integrity and trust and communication. So I know you have a fun story about integrity, and maybe share a little bit about that.
Well, years ago, I'm not 22 anymore, so I can say years ago.
You're not?
I went through and was doing some self-development, you know, study. And there was a program that I listened to. It was called Seeds of Greatness.
Okay.
And in this program, the presenter talked about, you know, what does integrity really mean? What does it mean to really be true and honest with someone? Well, back in the Greek world, a couple of thousand years ago, you had pottery makers, and pots were a big deal then. They carried water, they cooked in them, they did all kinds of things in them. And there were some like in all professions, you have people who do a good job, and have people who don't do such a good job. Well, how do you differentiate yourself? And much like today, you advertise in a way that would tell people that we're a higher quality shop. And in the Greek time, the word they used, they would say they're sine sera shops.
Whoa. They'd say what?
They're sine sera shops.
I'm not going to ask you to spell that, Dennis.
I'm not going to spell it because I don't know Greek.
That's great.
But
the Greek word is, again?
Sine sera.
Sine sera.
And I'm sure somebody out there listening to this will know that I got that wrong, but it's close. But what it is, it's the root word for the word sincere that we have today.
Yeah.
And what the differentiating factor was, pottery makers, when they would have a fine, crack in their pot or something that was an imperfection, they would fill it with wax. Mm-hmm. And sine sera means without wax. Mm. And as you can imagine, if you have a pot that you're going to cook in and it has wax in it, and you put it over a fire, while it may not immediately fall apart,
right,
it's going to start to leak.
That's right.
And it's not going to have the integrity that a pot without wax has.
Fantastic.
And so if you're going to truly have integrity, you have to be sine sera, without wax. You have to be sincere in what you do. And I always feel like sincerity is just being totally forthright and honest with people.
Right.
It's not, and sometimes it may even come out a little blunt, which I've been accused of. But it'll come out. But if it comes from the right place in your heart,
right,
you're really trying to help them do things. My experience is people who are really trying to accomplish their life goals will enjoy the fact that you're being honest with them, even if they don't really like what they're seeing.
Yeah, because sometimes people don't want to hear that hard truth.
That's right.
They come and they think you can, have a magic bullet or some solution that's just going to fix all their problems. And at the end of the day, the only real solution you have is to tell them something that maybe they don't want to hear. To me, that's being very sincere, very honest, and showing great care for their situation to help them know exactly what they're dealing with, and to be able to help walk that journey with them, to say, but that doesn't mean you don't have opportunities to achieve your goals, but let's make sure we understand exactly where we're starting at. And I think that's part of showing that caring, that sincerity, and ultimately the integrity to say, look, we can't fix something that we don't know exactly what's going on. And we certainly aren't going to tell you, hey, this is going to be great, when potentially it's not.
Well, and one of the things also I think that kind of falls into when you're working with people and you have these situations where maybe their expectations or their vision of what they're going to do is really hard for them to meet. I think some of the things that's really important is that you do a lot of education.
Right.
And you educate them on what their situation really is. Often, I find more often than not, actually, people think that they're in a worse situation than what
Absolutely.
they are. They come in, I'm never going to retire. I had a fellow come in a few years ago, and he's 60 years old. He says, I'm not going to be able to retire till I'm 70. And we started doing the planning. And really, all he needed to do was, he was on a pension already, but he also was working full time. All he needed to do was take about half of what he was earning from working full time and put that away.
Sure.
He had a full pension from 30 years working for another company. So he had plenty of income. All they needed to do is put that away for a few years, and they were going to be golden. And, they were, modest means people. They didn't, as I say, they didn't have big wanters. They didn't want a lot in life.
Sure,
and,
absolutely.
They're just fear factor of lack of knowledge. When we got done, he got up and says, I am so glad we came in. I never thought that I could be able to retire as soon as I could. He says, and it's been a great relationship with them, for the last several years, because now it's just a matter of them getting their cushion.
Sure.
Because they have their retirement taken care of. So that's when we talk about being real with people. Sometimes you have good stories like that.
Right.
We'll try not to talk about all the bad stories. There are not a lot of them, really. Most
you can learn from both, for sure. I think of kind of three objectives that I think about sitting down with someone and really helping them kind of navigate their way through these difficult conversations and really trying to show them, how to be sincere and that we really care about them. I think about, honestly, what you just said, that education piece. You educate, and sometimes it's kind of pulling back that curtain for them to help them understand, hey, it's not as bad as you may think it is, but also, hey, there's some things out here that you've done well. And I think sometimes people don't realize that they've made some good decisions along the way, but maybe they're not quite seeing the fruits of that quite yet. So that education piece is so important. And then secondly, I think about just getting them organized. I think there's a sense of care that is shown when you can take someone's stack of stuff, right? Sometimes they bring it in a grocery sack or maybe in a brief, a bag of some kind, and they're like, hey, we don't even know what we have. Can you help us out? And I think just taking the time to dig through and sort through and really figure out how does all this work together and create those pieces of organization. And then lastly, just preparing them to make those decisions, right? So, when I think about educating, organizing, and preparing, and really taking the time to show that sincere interest in the things that they care about, to me, that's how one of the ways you demonstrate integrity. You demonstrate that, hey, what's important to you is important to me. Right. And ultimately, as we're working with our clients, we want them to understand that the things that they ultimately want to accomplish and that they care about are what's important to us as well. And we want to show that sincerity. That's the key of doing what's right. When you think about the people that were some of your very first clients or the very first people you interacted with in this business and the people that you really want to engage in conversation, because now their kids are going to school and the decisions you made 15 years ago are now benefiting them, or maybe they've worked their entire career and now they're getting ready to retire, and you can look back to them and say, yeah, remember those hard conversations we had, or those decisions that we made early on and how they've impacted you, but it's really because of that relationship that you've built over time. And I think even in those moments, when I think back on those conversations, even with some of your most difficult clients, which happen to be your own family sometime, right? Can be.
My family's perfect. They're
perfect.
So.
Okay, right. So, I think about, here's an opportunity to have a sincere interest in someone, but also be able to really see the benefit of that over a long period of time. And to me, that's really the rewarding piece of it that comes from honestly just being sincere with people in a way that, you don't have to remember what you told them, because what you told them was the right thing.
Yeah, that's a little levity on that portion. I used to tell people would ask me, how do you remember what you said last year about the economy? I said, well, I told everybody that. I said it was the same thing. And it really makes it a lot easier. Sure. Not that you forget things as you get older, but you have a whole lot more stuff that's up there, Right. And if you always have that level of communicating what you truly believe, you don't have to remember anything.
It's just being consistent too. I know that's something that, we have the opportunity to sit in together on a lot of client meetings, and they may be your clients from years ago, or they may be my clients that now are being introduced to you and introduced to the practice. Yeah. But one of the things I really appreciate is that it's the same message, right? It's the same approach to helping them achieve what they care about, and the knowledge piece that you bring, and that I think all the advisors at Beyond Wealth bring to the table, is really to say, look, through that knowledge, through that wisdom, through that education, that they can know that they're going to get consistent guidance, they're going to get consistent direction in terms of how to achieve their goals. And whether I'm in on the meeting the first time or it's your client that you've had for decades, we both know exactly where that person is coming from, and quite honestly, where they're going. The exciting thing is, and since we're kind of building on this theme of beyond the journey, is really being able to take those core values, things like integrity and trust and communication, and really bridge that now to the next gap, to the next step, and really bridge that to the next step to say, okay, but what's next for you? Okay, we've built this relationship over so many years, and they've trusted you, they've trusted me, they've trusted us with this idea of planning, but what's next.
Mm-hmm.
So as you wrap up the second podcast here, and we think about what's the real benefit to our clients to work with a group of advisors that really put the client first.
Well, I think most clients, it's really a comfort factor.
Mm.
If clients feel that you're being honest, you're genuine with them.
Yes.
That means that in my case, that means I've heard my same bad joke at least 5 or 6 times.
And maybe the same story once or twice.
Maybe the same story once or twice. As my daughter would say, dad jokes, they're bad, but she uses them now. But I think that if they feel a comfort factor, they'll start sharing things with you that really don't relate to their finances. Things that are going on in their family. It gives you, and that's beneficial. Well, it's not financial. It is beneficial.
Absolutely.
Because it gives you a flavor of what the dynamics are as you're trying to develop plans, whether it's for their children or grandchildren, and you watch those things evolve over time. I've watched, a couple of families where I know they had some real stresses, and now they've come around and with some of the people they were really concerned with, and their stress has gone away.
Right.
Because of some positive things that have happened in those people's lives, the decisions they've started making a little better decisions and stuff. But just if you that, like I said, that's not financial,
right?
But it helps you understand who they are, and when it comes down to helping them make decisions, and then as people age, you're getting into the multi-generational aspect where you're meeting with the kids and the grandkids, and if they hear you talk about their parents, the grandparents, and they know them, and they
really know them.
Really
Not just know them, but really know them.
You really know them.
Right.
You understand. You remember when this grandchild, this happened to them, and you convey, I remember when this happened, to you. And they're going, wow, you knew that. It lets them understand that you really were caring about who they were and what's going on with them. And those are ancillary to the financial side, and a lot of people don't see that as really important until they've experienced it.
Yeah, I think of honestly, the peace of mind that comes to those clients knowing that there's someone in their life that's not only helped them and directed them along these difficult financial decisions, but someone that knows them well enough that their next generation, their kids, their family legacy will definitely be represented in a way. And as you know, many times they invite us into that kind of family meeting and begin having dialogue around how best to tell their story beyond wealth, because they have people that they care about as well, and they want to see them taken care of down the road. So
one of the things I think is interesting to talk about, we talk about beyond wealth. There could be a perception that you're talking about people who have a lot of money.
Right.
The reality is we all have wealth in America. And I think it's important to understand that beyond wealth doesn't mean a multimillionaire.
Yes.
It's beyond the wealth that you have. And it may be small in one person's eyes, but it's great in another person's eyes. The reality is our wealth goes beyond our money. And I think every person that we encounter in our business, they have wealth.
That's right.
And we want to be able to communicate.
And they have their own personal journey.
That's right.
And we've stepped into a lot of people's journey before they even knew they had a journey, because they come to us and they say, we don't even know where to start, or we don't want our family or our kids to go through the same struggles or the same challenges that they went through, and they simply want to get a handle on where to go next. Right. And it's those opportunities that you get to really dig into those beliefs, kind of where we started, right? Yeah. Our clients have a certain set of beliefs, and maybe their behaviors aren't quite matching up in terms of how they're achieving their goals, and we have the opportunity to really impact them in a way that is meaningful and help them along that journey to achieve the things they want to achieve.
And I think that can happen whether you bring somebody in who is, let's say, pre-retirement, or you have somebody, I've had clients I've brought in that have come in as clients late in their journey. Maybe even when one of the spouses have passed away and in their 80s, but yet their kids have brought us in to help them maneuver through the end of their journey.
That's right.
And I find those very fulfilling, because I know I'm really, you can see the impact then, because all of a sudden there's a calmness that comes about in these people that they're stressed. They've never done planning before, so they weren't prepared. But yet there's that calmness that comes with understanding that, okay, this is where I am on my journey, and this is where it's going.
Right.
And now I can be calm enough to take the grandkids to Disneyland.
Right.
So
educate, organize, and prepare.
Right.
And at all phases of life, it really does have an impact. So
it does.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us again today on episode 2 of Beyond the Journey. Again, I'm John Kliewer.
And I'm Dennis Bacon.
And we hope to see you back next week.